Today we are going to continue with simplifying square roots. So this is going to be day 2. So before we begin simplifying the square roots on this page, let's list our perfect squares. So I'm going to bubble that in red right now because that's really important. These are the numbers that help us simplify the square roots. We did this in the last lesson, but I want to list them again. Usually when I have a test or a quiz or anything like that, I would always list these numbers because they're nice and easy to be able to look at and then be able to simplify instead of just trying to think of them on your own. So remember, the perfect squares, you can start at 1, and 1 squared is 1, and that's not going to help us simplify anything. So we can skip right to 2. So 2 squared, so 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 3, 3 squared is 9. 4 squared, 4 times 4 is 16. 5 squared is 25. 6 squared is 36. 7 squared is 49. 8 squared is 64. 9 squared is 81. 10 squared is 100. 11 squared is 121. And 12 squared is 144. And we won't have to go any higher than those numbers. Most of the time you won't have to go over 100. All right, so those are very important. I'm going to highlight those in yellow just so that I know they're over here and they stand out. Okay, so in our last lesson, we just simplified a square root. If you put it in your calculator and you got a decimal, that's not what we wanted. We wanted to simplify it using these numbers. Well, today we're going to take it one step further. The directions say we have to multiply the radicals. Radicals is another term for square roots. So when it says multiply the radicals, it just means multiply the square roots. Then simplify if possible. So sometimes it won't be possible, and other times it will. So let's take a look here. We have the square root of 3 times the square root of 7. Well, we know that 3 times 7 is 21, so when we multiply them with the radical symbol, it becomes the square root of 21. All we're doing is multiplying 3 times 7. Now we have the square root of 21 and we have to see if it simplifies. So if you remember from our last lesson, that means we take the number 21 and we see if these numbers go into it evenly. So 21 divided by 4 doesn't work. 21 divided by 9 doesn't work. 21 divided by 16 doesn't work, and we can stop there. Turns out the square root of 21 is our answer. Easy peasy. Just multiply the two numbers together. Let's take a look at B. Square root of 2 times the square root of 8. Well, 2 times 8 is 16, so we have the square root of 16. So, square root of 16. Does 4 go into 16? It sure does, 4 times. So let's think about that. The square root of 16. So if we have 4 and 4, right, those are one of our options. But let's take a look. Does 9 go into 16? The square root of 16, I'm sorry, not the square root, 16 divided by 9. Nope, that doesn't work. But let's take a look at 16 divided by 16. Oh, 16 and 1, that works. So we don't want the 4 and the 4. But some of you might have noticed from the beginning that the square root of 16 is a perfect square. So I can say to myself, what number times itself gives me 16? Well, isn't that 4? 4 times 4 is 16. So if we want to do it this way, square root of 16 times the square root of 1, the square root of 16 is 4, and the square root of 1 is 1. So if we do 4 times 1, we have 4. The square root of 16 is 4. If it's on this list, it's a perfect square. Let's take a look at C. 5 root 3 times root 3. What really happens is there is an invisible 1 right in front of that square root of 3. So we want to multiply the 5 and the 1. So 5 times 1 is 5. Root 3 times root 3. So 3 times 3 is 9. We can't simplify a regular old 5, so we just bring that down. 5. But is there a square root of 9? Let's check it out. Square root of 9. It's a perfect square. So 3 times 3 gives me 9. So this turns into a 3. They're being multiplied. So 5 times 3 is 15. Regular old 15. Okay, let's go back and let's practice some stuff that we did in our last lesson. So for the first 4, these are easy. It says find the square root, round your answer to the nearest tenth. If it's telling you to round your answer, that means use your calculator to get a decimal. Round your answer to the nearest tenth. That means 1 decimal place. So these we're just punching into our calculator. The square root of 27 is 5.2. Square root of 46. 6.8. We're rounding up. 6.8. Square root of 8. 2.8. Square root of 97. 9.8. So there's no reason to get any of these answers wrong because you are just using your calculator. Now the next part where it says simplify the radical expressions, that's where we need to refer to our perfect square list. Simplify means use your perfect square list. No decimals allowed. Okay, so the square root of 20. So let's take a look. Let's test 4, we'll test 9, and we'll see what happens. So 20 divided by 4. Does that work? It does. 4 times 5. Let's see, does 9 go into 20? Nope, it doesn't. We could try the next one, 21 divided by 16. That doesn't work either. Turns out 4 and 5 are the numbers we want to use to simplify. So remember, we write this as the square root of 4 times the square root of 5. The square root of 4 is 2. We bring down the root 5. Remember, we write the perfect square number first because that's the one that's going to simplify to a regular number without a square root. The second number is the number you're going to bring down and keep the square root symbol. So let's try square root of 8. Let's check. 8 divided by 4. Yep, 4 and 2 work. Well, we don't have to check 9 because 9 is bigger than 8, so we know it's not going to work. So this becomes the square root of 4 times the square root of 2. What is the square root of 4? The square root of 4 is 2, a regular 2. This number can't simplify, so we bring it down, and we have the square root of 2. That is your answer simplified. All right, 75. Let's test it out. 75 divided by 4. Doesn't work. 75 divided by 9. Doesn't work. 75 divided by 16. Doesn't work. 75 divided by 25. Oh, 25 and 3 work. Let's just try 36. 75 divided by 36. Nope, that doesn't work. So these are my numbers that simplify. Square root of 25 times the square root of 3. The square root of 25 is 5. Bring down your root 3. That is your final answer. Okay, last one, 112. So we've got a bigger number here. So we start at the top. 112 divided by 4. Well, that works, 4 and 28. But I have to check and see if there's something bigger that goes into it. 112 divided by 9 doesn't work. 112 divided by 16. Oh, that works. 16 times 7. So I can cross this one out up top. We don't want that one anymore. So let's try some more. 112 divided by 25 doesn't work. 112 divided by 36. Nope. 112 divided by 49. And 112 divided by 64. No. So I went through half of those numbers there and they didn't work. So it looks like 16 and 7 are my numbers to simplify. So we've got the square root of 16 times the square root of 7. The square root of 16 is really 4. We bring down the root 7. So this was day 2 of simplifying your square roots. You're going to have a little bit more practice for this for your homework assignment.